All right. So, how we start this up is with the third step prayer, Rob.
Which is on page 63 of your big book. So if you want to follow along, and my name is Rob Kay, and I am a recovered alcoholic. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
All right. Well, here we are. We are at chapter 11, A Vision for You, on page 151, 151. So,
I'll give everybody just a moment to get to the correct page.
yeah,
And Jenny just got into the room, so welcome, Jenny. We're
yeah.
on page 151, everybody. A vision for you. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good, but not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt, one more failure.
Yeah. Boy, doesn't it start out at the beginning here talking about how it is for normal drinkers when they are actually drinking. I was at an event on Thursday evening with my wife, and it was interesting to watch how normal drinkers drink. In fact, a couple of people left a little bit of drink in their glasses. They stopped after two drinks. It was and switched to things like water and iced tea and things like that. So they were having certainly as much fun as I was having, and it was just a really interesting thing to watch because I that's kind of what I do now is to see if I can find somebody that's struggling with their drinking and that type of thing. But obviously I knew that there was no way that I would have been able to participate in drinking because obviously the old pleasures were gone and I could never get back what I had in the past in the way, way, way distant past. And I've been there where I've had that opportunity, taken the opportunity, and I failed. So it is certainly true. This first paragraph is very, very true for everyone. Rob?
Yeah, remember, Bill's called this chapter a vision for you. Okay, it's not a vision for us, it's a vision for you. The whole idea about this and is that Bill knew that sooner or later he would have to face the challenge of creating a chapter that outlined in the clearest possible terms the action needed to get and then stay sober. And that's coming from writing of the big book on page 427. If you haven't read writing the big book, it's an incredible book. It has a lot of interesting tidbits of information. But the whole idea is that yeah, it's one thing to get sober. Now we got to stay sober, and that's the hard part. How many times have we all quit? Tons and tons of times. Was able to quit. I just couldn't stay stopped. You know. And the thing is that a lot of times we think, well, how can I? My whole life is going to change. It's going to get boring. I won't see my friends. I won't see this and that. And that's what Bill's going to start to talk about in this chapter. There's a whole new life waiting for you. Okay? It's going to take a little bit of time, but there's a new life waiting for you out there. Okay, we're on page 151, everybody. Second paragraph. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself. As we became subject of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily, we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the four hideous horsemen. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand.
Absolutely. We're talking more about what it is like to be an alcoholic and to have gotten to the point that people are leaving, and the isolation and loneliness that comes with that. That you basically are your relationship with King Alcohol is just that. It's the only relationship you have, and things get darker and darker, and the despair and frustration and ugliness of what it is to be out of control and drinking too much. Obviously, the four horsemen will repeat that: the terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. Everyone in this room can understand that. Everyone. Rob?
Yeah, unfortunately, we all pretty much understand that. You know, at the end of my drinking, it was isolation. Just wanted to push everybody away. Just let me drink the way I want to drink, and don't ask me questions. Don't say, do you really need another one? I didn't want those things. What type of life am I leading? You know, isolating, being by myself, you know, but I'm worried that if I quit drinking, then I'm going to lose all my friends. I've already pretty much lost them, or I've isolated myself so I don't see them anymore anyways. And Mary B understands. She's getting a kick out of that one. Now, let's talk about it. Terror is fear. Bewilderment is baffled. Frustration, how it happened. And despair, surrounded by quicksand, we're hopeless. You know, these are things that, Bill's talked about earlier in the book. You know, the four deadly horsemen. Now and then, a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. And ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirit. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, where he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end.
Absolutely. I think that this is one of those paragraphs where you secretly, or well, you're outwardly saying that you're fine, that you're basically white knuckling the time, and inwardly you are thinking about that next drink, that next round of drinks, and right back to where you were. You are not happy with the sobriety. You probably have a lot of this withdrawal effects, whether that be that nervous shake and that yearning for more. It's a bad place to be, because obviously you're not being honest with yourself and you're not being honest with other people, which is a problem. And but finding that higher power is what's so important here, and being able to tap into that inner strength to be able to overcome the urges and the place that puts you in for trying to find a way to drink no matter what. It's a really sad place to be in this particular paragraph, and it's one that I had been in. I can tell you, I used to talk the talk, but nowhere near walking the walk, and was just trying to appease other people. I was trying to get away with, trying to show that I could control my drinking, and obviously not having any fun by doing so. And it was a hard place to be. And I've been exactly where where this is talking about. Rob?
Yeah, if you're new to this meeting, I hope you realize that in the chat, I post an awful lot of things in there. So I hope that you have the chat open. If you don't, I just put something in there. And this is from a book called Carry This Message, and I believe it's by Joel McQuaid. And he said, "We say this is a program of attraction. New people aren't going to be attracted to people who are simply not drinking. Not drinking is not enough. We often place the emphasis on sobriety, but that isn't the goal of this program. The goal of this program is a spiritual awakening that will change our lives, that will produce a personality change sufficient to make us recover, to make us happy, joyous, and free. If people can see that this has happened to us, in us, they will be attracted to our program. That is our message. So the whole thing is that to attract other people. If I go to a meeting and I'm miserable, and a new person comes into the room, and I go, "Hi, my name's Rob K. I'm a recovered alcoholic," you know, and I'm miserable, is that going to attract the other person? No. I used to go to this one meeting in Toronto, and there were a couple of men in that meeting that were just miserable, just mean old sons of a gun. And and I always thought, if that is sobriety, I don't want it. I want to be happy. I've been miserable long enough with alcohol. Now I want to be happy. Okay. So I am going to be attracted to people that are happy, that have found this solution that's in the book, have found a spiritual experience, that have changed their life. Instead of being selfish and self-centered, now they think about other people and that they're living their life to help others. And that's a 180-degree turnaround that we do, you know. So we want to, in order to attract people, you have to have an attractive personality. Well, I don't mean we have to, go and give everybody $20 and, so everybody will like us. No, the idea is that happy, joyous, and free. That's what God wants us to be, so we can help other people carry this message. We have shown how we got out from under. You say, "Yes, I'm willing, but am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum? Like some righteous people I see. I know I must get along without liquor. How can I? Have you a sufficient substitute?"
Certainly, though, got the questions here. Got a willing participant, but those are the actual questions that a lot of people ask, and it's usually answered. A lot of times, it's just out of observation of other people within the group and seeing that they're actually doing quite well and having a good time and happy. On top of that, these questions never are left unanswered in the book, and we will certainly answer them soon. So the first answer to the "Have you a sufficient substitute?" Oh boy, do I. So here we go.
That's what I love about Bill's writing, is that he asks the question, "Have you a sufficient substitute?" He doesn't expect us to answer it. He's going to answer it. And that's what I love about it. Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus, we find the fellowship, and so will you. How is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? Another question for you, Leo.
Absolutely. And sorry I jumped in there. So that is certainly a good start to the answer. Yes, there is a substitute and is vastly more than that. A little bit vague at this point, but we're actually going to be answering it as we go along here. And also the how it is to come about, and then where am I to find these people? We certainly have found a group here, and that is very indicative of the fellowship. What a family that we have in this room at this point, with all of the folks that we've got. Thank you for being here. So, Rob?
Yep. And this is Bill answers the question again. He doesn't leave us hanging there trying to go, oh, figure it out for yourself. We're at page 152. You should know the answer by now. No, Bill answers the question because people are worried about, well, I've come this far. I'm going to quit drinking. What is there that lies ahead? We can't see the forest for the trees. We can't see the good things that lie ahead of us a lot of times because it's a whole new way of living. You are going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties. For you will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor and thyself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to meet a lot of great people in the fellowship, and they are, regardless of whether you're in a big city or a small town anymore. All you need is the internet, and if you have the internet and you can get on a Zoom meeting, you've automatically got a fellowship right there. It's one of the strongest. I think it's actually one of the best because it can go international, much like our room. And I love that about this group, and that is that we come from all over the world, and it's possible to have something local. At the same time, it's possible to go and have something quite international and still get the what is behind and supported with the group that you may have. Rob?
Yeah, Bill talked earlier about we all had a common disaster. We all are saved from the shipwreck, from steerage, to captain's table. When the ship goes down, it doesn't care whether you're in first class or whether you're in steerage. We all try to get rescued. So shoulder to shoulder, we help each other on our common journey to be rescued, to recover from alcoholism. Okay, and here it talks about the change that comes over us with the spiritual experience. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. You're going to help others to get better. Love thy neighbors as thyself. Before my spiritual experience, it was, I love myself and you should love me and give me things. Now today it's, what can I do for you today? Instead of thinking about myself all the time. It's a whole new way of living. Caring about other people, getting out of your own head and thinking about others. What can I do for somebody else today? Page 153, everybody. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you wish them above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that.
Absolutely, and it continues this day. So not just in the late 1930s, early 1940s. This is still to this day. Age of Miracles is still with us, and it is quite awe-inspiring to watch other people recover. At the same time, watching yourself recover is really, really rewarding. And being able to then turn around and help others is obviously the way that we stay sober and continue down this path. Very, very good information here. Become happy, respected, and useful once more. what a thing to have when you can get up in the morning, feel good about yourself and feel good about others and about what you're doing, and get on with your life and not have to worry about having missed work, being late, being hungover, uh, or being continually drunk and completely withdrawn and despondent to other people. Rob?
Yeah. Our hope is that when this chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out.
Absolutely. And it's not only that they have, and it is a very, very large international group of fellowships, and fellowship is incredibly strong. You need only the fingertip to find somebody to help you out, whether that's to go through the book, go through the steps, be a sponsor, help with other people. That's the other thing that is so nice about the fellowship, is that if you need help with something, there's always going to be that assistance there. And if you're stuck on a particular part of the program, there's certainly somebody there to help you and or help you help others. And it is quite a deal, and we continue to this day. It's what keeps Alcoholics Anonymous alive, and that is the newcomers and working with those newcomers on a daily basis. Rob?
Yeah, and I like here this Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. Now, if you remember that one of the names of the books that they were thinking to name this book was The Way Out, but also on page 17, they mention this. The feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us, but that in itself would never have held us together as we're now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. Again, the way out. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approached and aid others to health. Suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here is a brief account. Do you want to say anything before I jump into that?
Nope, let's go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Bill W. Years ago, in 1935, one of our number made a journey to a certain western city. From a business standpoint, his trip came up badly. Had he been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important. But his venture wound up in a lawsuit and bogged down completely. The proceeding was shot through with much hard feeling and controversy.
Yep, and you're right. We are talking about Bill W. The western city is Akron, Ohio, and the business that we were talking about is the National Rubber Machine Company. And it was obviously an attempt to move in and become one of the executive, one of the senior executives of the company, and it obviously didn't turn out, and things went south, and that is what began our story with regard to Bill's coming forward. So we'll learn more about that as we go along.
Yeah, this is a great story. It just goes to show what we need to do sometimes when things, life is not going to go our way 100%. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. So we have to know how to deal with the downs, because we have a new way of living now. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak and sober but a few months, He saw that his predicament was dangerous. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom?
Yeah, so we found ourselves with a test, if you will, a trial. It was a point where you're at a low spot in your life, which is one of those reasons, if you will, that we come up with to drink. And here, Bill is facing a big one and a lot of frustration, I'm sure some anger and some sadness and in a city that was unknown to him at the time, that um, ultimately would put you into a place where you're looking around going, okay, what next? And that what next could include starting to drink again. And Bill had the wherewithal to do whatever he could in order not to drink. And that's what we're going to find out about. Rob?
One dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby, wondering how his bill was to be paid. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside. In there, he would find companionship and release. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend.
Yeah. So here he is. Um, he's got the devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. He's whispering in his ears, if you will. It's one of those splits in the road. Which direction do I go? Do I go the high road, the low road? We could go on and on with that, but the bottom line is there was a lot to uh, um, gain, and there was a lot to be lost at this point. And I would say that a lot to be lost, even though he had just a few months of sobriety, that's still a big deal, and don't want anything to take away from that. Had he gone in and started drinking, then all would have been lost, and who knows. But anyway, so here we are. He could go left or he could go right, and we'll see what he chooses. Rob?
He zigged, he zagged, he did this, he did that. Now, remember when we read Bill's story? In Bill's story, now, Bill has been sober for 6 months at this point. Now, what has Bill done in the meantime? Anytime he was feeling low or anything like that, he went to Towns Hospital and worked with some other people. And so this is what Bill has done in the past. Now, he was not able to keep anybody else sober. All the people that he worked with failed at this point. But he felt better when he went to go help other people. It's an important thing to remember that this is what he has done in the past. This is what made him feel better. Okay. So he's got a choice to make now. He hears the chatter from the bar. He knows that he'll feel better if he helps other people. Which direction does he go to? Of course he couldn't drink. But why not sit hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? After all, had he not been sober 6 months now? Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more? Fear gripped him. He was on thin ice. Again, it was the old insidious insanity, that first drink. With a shiver, he turned away and walked down the lobby to the church directory. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar.
Now, I have to say that I've been there at that crossroads a lot, in the beginning especially, and I was so happy to. Now I'm very happy to know that I chose to just walk down the hallway to that directory, if you will, and start to look to talk to other people, to do other things, and to get my mind off of the idea that somehow I could control my drinking and take 3 drinks no more and be done. What a place to be. We've all been there, especially in the beginning. I can say the other evening when I was at this event, there was only one moment, and it was a fleeting moment, that a beer was set next to me for someone else, and it was just this weird kind of feeling that I had, that there was that old familiarity of having a beer being set next to you and then actually grabbing it and drinking it. But I quickly recognized it, kind of like a hot flame. I went away from it. I stepped away just a couple of steps. I had an iced tea lemonade, took a couple of drinks, focused on what I was talking about, and everything was gone. Everything was okay, and I was good. So, it is funny how that first thought, that trigger, kind of comes up, and I even talked about the event, the time that what had happened with my wife, just to make sure that I was covering my bases, and went from there. But the idea here is making that choice, having the strength to make that choice is what this program's all about, is finding that strength in that partnership with that higher power, and recognizing that drinking is not good. Not drinking is great.
It's fantastic.
Yep.
You know, I love hearing how Bill, when he talks, you know, he can go into the bar and he can have, say, ginger ale. And then he changes it to, well, he could handle maybe 3 drinks. The progression. You know, fear gripped him. What had fear done to Bill when he went into town? He came out of town's hospital. Fear sobered him up for a bit. A short period of time, it sobered him up. Okay? Self-knowledge sobered him up for a bit too. But overall, no. When he found out Dr. Silkworth's idea of the allergy, that any alcohol taken into his body, whatever, creates the phenomenon of craving. Bill knows these things now. Remember, Bill has got the alcoholic puzzle, which I'll put into the chat later on. Okay, you got Roland Hazard and Carl Jung. They're part of the puzzle that Ebby brought to Bill. Dr. Silkworth gave him the allergy. So Bill's got all these pieces of the puzzle to bring it together. So what is the solution? Spiritual experience. Well, we know, okay, we know that because we've read through this. Bill's going through this by himself. Hasn't sobered up anybody else. Okay? So on page 30, it talks about we have to concede to our innermost selves that we're alcoholic. Bill has conceded this. He realizes that if he takes just one drink, he's going to get the allergy is going to be triggered. So Bill knows he can't take just one. He can't take even one drink. Okay. But then we have the other problem, which is on page 32. If we're not in fit spiritual shape, okay, I always do this with my fingers. God, me. If I'm like this with God, I am safe and protected. If I don't do the things I'm supposed to do and my connection to God starts to waver, at what point does the obsession of the mind come back? I don't know. I don't want to find out. Why? Because if the obsession comes back, I'm going to think it's okay for me to take a drink. And we don't want that. Now, on page 32, okay, they talk about the man of 32, okay, who never took a drink for 25 years. But then he fell victim to the belief which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other men. Now, 6 months is a long time when you're an alcoholic. So if Bill isn't in fit spiritual shape, he's in trouble. But Bill knew to veer, okay, because he was in fit spiritual shape. Okay. So we're at the bottom of page 154. Well, what about his responsibilities? His family and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well. Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman. His sanity returned, and he thanked God. Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver.
Yep, and he's on his way. He made that choice. He's the better for it. He was able to recognize the big lie, and that there was no way that he was going to be able to to drink like other people, to control it and enjoy it, and that he is now on his way. And I would say that this is the moment that Alcoholics Anonymous is starting. And what a way, what a way to recognize that moment in time where Bill is actually starting his process of finding Dr. Bob. But we again know about that, and we'll read some more here. But here we go. Rob?
Okay. My earphone fell out. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town, who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair, whose the usual situation, home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. I'm just going to read the asterisk.
Yeah, go
This
ahead.
refers to Bill's first visit with Dr. Bob. These men later became co-founders of AA. Bill's story opens the text of this book. Dr. Bob's heads the story section.
Yep. And um, well, this is the beginning. This is where we he finds that he finds Dr. Bob. The story is the same. The wife is ill. Just children are distracted. Bills and arrears. And I know that that was a big thing for Dr. Bob, as he was completely unable to pay his bills, and a lot of damage was being but had occurred and was continuing. He did want to stop, and that's a big part of this. One of the things about an alcoholic or a recovered alcoholic is that they absolutely want to stop drinking. That's a kind of an ingredient to start with, and but this is the opportunity that's being presented to Bill, and here we go. Rob?
Yeah. Now, we know who these people are that have come in. Clergyman is Walter Tunks. We know that the lady is Henrietta Seiberling. You know, and I'm just gonna I put something in the chat, but I'm gonna read it anyway. The directory held many names. Did Bill pick the Reverend Walter Tunks to call at random? Sam Shoemaker from the New York Oxford Group was Episcopalian. So did Bill choose Tunks because he was a minister in the same denomination? Remember, Bill was friends with Sam Shoemaker. Or was he chosen because one of Bill's favorite expressions was taking a tunk, meaning taking a walk? All our versions told of the legend, but what is important is that but by whatever means, Bill Wilson called Reverend Tunks. And so through Reverend Tunks, Bill gets Henrietta Seiberling's name. You know, so you know things are starting to fall into place here. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business, only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his plight to people from whom he had made his livelihood? He would do anything, he said, but that.
Yeah, that's a tough place to be. You don't want people to know, but yet they probably already do know. That was one of the things that was kind of enlightening for me, and that is finding out that people already knew that I had a problem with drinking, that I was in fact someone who was in trouble, and I was surprised to find out how many people actually knew it. But when I sat back in a sober setting and clear mind and thinking back to things, trying to remember I can remember things that happened that I could say, "Yep, that's what happened," and people did know. Um, I um, obviously there's a lot of worry there, especially for Dr. Bob because he's a doctor. His business relies on patients, and those patients would go away if they found out that he was an alcoholic and under the influence most of the time, even when he was working on and with people. Rob?
Yeah, in the next, either next week or the week after that, we'll be reading Dr. Bob's Nightmare. And we'll get more in depth into that. But know that Dr. Bob for 17 years took sedatives in the morning in order to quiet his nerves so they could go to work to make some money so he could afford to buy alcohol on the way home. 17 years on what I like to call the hamster wheel, surviving, just going as quickly as possible, getting nowhere, just doing the same thing over and over again. Not much of a life, and yeah, when we hear a lot of time, you hear about alcoholics taking their own life because they see no way out. They just see themselves doing the same thing over and over again. They go, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore, but I can't stop myself. I don't have a solution. That's why it's so important that we who have the solution take it to those that need it because we are losing too many people. My wife yesterday just found out that a person that she used to work with died of this disease. My wife worked in HR. She tried to get this person help, and the person didn't want it at the time. My poor wife, obviously knows I'm in the program, and was willing to take her to meetings to do whatever was necessary. My wife is a normie, but she was willing to do this for the person because she's seen what it's done for me
Mm-hmm.
and how my life changed around. So she wanted to give it to somebody else. But we can't give it to somebody else unless they want it. And if they won't take it, all we can do is try to plant the seed. And that's one of the beautiful things about this book is it teaches us plant the seed. Hopefully it'll take root and the person will call us back. Hopefully. We don't take responsibility for people getting sober. We don't take responsibility for people getting drunk. That's between them and God. What we do is we show them what we have done in order to get better. If they want to follow our path and become reliant upon a higher power, not on a sponsor, we become reliant on a higher power. Okay. Sorry, I get on a soapbox, Martha, sometimes, and I just can't get off it sometimes. So I do apologize for that. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed. Oh, I've read that part, did I not? No, I
Yep.
didn't. Did I read that part?
Yes, you did, Rob.
Yeah, I've read about the obsession that. Oh, yes, I did. I apologize. Being intrigued, however, he invited a friend to his home. Sometime later, and just as he thought he was getting control of the liquor situation, he went on a roaring bender. For him, this was a spree that ended all sprees. He saw that he would have to face his problem squarely, that God might give him mastery.
Yep. And being intrigued, however, invited a friend. They talked for some time later. Well, they talked for 6 hours. That was the first time that Dr. Bob was able to see and understand what he had and relate to another alcoholic. Dr. Bill, sorry, Bill W. Talked about himself and his problems and not about Bob's drinking, although I'm sure that part of the conversation was about that. But Dr. Bob was able to control it at that point and start to find that inner strength that we all look for. Unfortunately, he went and did another spree. This was on a trip to Atlantic City in a convention. And it turned out to be the last time he drank, and there we go. Dr. Bob was now a recovering alcoholic at that point. Rob?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story about Bill meeting Dr. Bob. Henrietta Seiberling comes into it. The American Medical Association has an annual get together that Dr. Bob has never missed. So Dr. Bob gets on the train to go there and gets drunk on the train on his way there. Now it's also interesting to note that we have Founders Day on the 10th, and according to records of the American Medical Association, the date seems to be that it should be the 17th. Here nor there. Whether Founders Day should be on the 10th or the 17th, not a big deal to me. But according to when the American Medical Association was supposed to happen, the dates don't add up. A lot of research has been going on into the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. So a few things get messed up, and Bill was never great with dates. And they say that the worst one to ask about AA history was Bill Wilson. Because a lot of the stories that he put together were to make a point. So in order to make a point, sometimes you have to shave a little here, shave a little there, bang it a little bit closer together and come up with something. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. It is what it is. One morning he took the bull by the horns and set out to tell those he feared what his trouble had been. He found himself surprisingly well received and learned that many knew of his drinking. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business.
In his line of business, obviously being a doctor and
proctologist.
Yep, absolutely, and surgeon to boot. He spent some time doing that. There was, I know part of the story is Bill was waiting for him at home. They thought maybe he had gone out and drank again, but when he finally did come home and talked about what his day was like, being out there doing really steps 4 through 9, and spending some hours doing it, making amends, and there we go. He took action and made his amends, and in doing so solidified his sobriety and never drink again. Rob?
Yeah, they get together. The one thing that Dr. Bob was a very religious man. Growing up, his father was a Sunday school teacher, so he had an awful lot of religious training growing up. He said when he got older, he wouldn't darken the doors of a church again. He was a member of the Oxford Group for over 2 years. Him and his wife, they went to the Oxford Group house parties, and trying to, but it wasn't doing it. Dr. Bob was still getting drunk every night. Something wasn't clicking. Okay? And it wasn't until he was able to sit down with Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson told him about the allergy, the obsession of the mind, and that the only solution was to get a spiritual solution. And therefore, to change the way we look at things, do for the other people, and that seemed to do the trick. One alcoholic talking to another. Our friend Bill S. from New Jersey, talks about a drunk falling into a hole. Psychiatrists go by, doctors go by, talk to the guy down in the hole. They can't get him out of the hole. Nobody can help him. But an sober member from AA jumps into the hole. The drunk in the hole says, "Are you crazy?" And the sober alcoholic said, "I know the way out. I've been here before. Just take 12 steps. Follow me." I love that story when Bill tells it, because it just goes to show that, like experts, psychiatrists, doctors, all these other people, You know, they talk to us, they try to help out alcoholics, but they can't get through. But Bill Wilson found out that one alcoholic talking to another can get through like nobody else can. And that's why it's important that we carry this message to other alcoholics. Bill, I'm sorry I used your story. And Leo, it is 12:53. I think I've talked enough, bored people, and I do apologize for getting on the soapbox. But I'm passionate about this program, to be honest with you. And I want people that to get it, and that for us to carry it, because only we can get through to another alcoholic. Right, Bill, from New Jersey?
Yep. Yeah, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This is a real good chapter. I like this chapter. It's got a lot of history in it. And then basically what Bill's doing, first he's giving us kind of like an introduction to alcoholism, telling us what happens to us. We wake up to the four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. Most of us can identify with all of this kind of stuff here. And how do we get out of it? He's trying to give us some instruction here, or some suggestion, and it tells us that we walk shoulder to shoulder with each other. In other words, we're all the same thing in here. We're all sober alcoholics trying to help each other stay sober. Then he gets into the Akron part here. He's talking about when Bill Wilson went out to Akron with a group of people that were going to take over this company, the National Rubber Machine Company. They have some kind of a proxy vote, and they were going to take over, and they had the whole thing figured out, and they counted all the votes, and they had it figured out that they were going to take over. And they told Bill he was going to be the president of the company, and he was going to get a big salary, and he would have been set on his feet, and everything would have worked out fine. And then somehow the deal fell through. The proxy votes didn't vote the way they thought they were going to vote, and it wound up in some kind of a lawsuit, and everything just fell apart. So the whole group of people that were with Bill, they went back to New York to get their legal team together, and they left Bill there to see if he could salvage the venture. And Bill was there all by himself, pacing the lobby of the hotel, and he's thinking, should I drink? Should I go and call a minister, call one of these churches? Should I go into the bar, whatever? He hears the people in the bar, and he hears them having a good time, and he thinks, I've got 6 months of sobriety. Maybe I can handle 3 drinks. Does anybody identify with that? I got 6 months now. I can handle this. I'll just have a few. Yeah, that's what was going through Bill's mind. If you want to call that the lie, and Bill recognized it. He recognized the lie. Back in the chapter more on alcoholism, Jim and Fred didn't recognize the lie. Bill recognized the lie. So what did he do? Fear gripped him, and he walked to the church directory, and he made a phone call. The church directory, that could be symbolic of divine intervention. He didn't just walk to the telephone and pick up a telephone book. He went specifically to a church directory. So obviously, in Bill's mind, something's going on here that's a little bit more than human stuff going on. And he made a phone call. He picked out the church at random. However that happened, whether he, like Rob said, he was the same Episcopalian minister as Sam Shoemaker. Maybe Sam Shoemaker told him to call an Episcopalian minister if he had trouble. Maybe he just did it because he was friends with Sam. Maybe he just picked it out at random. We don't know. But all we know is he called the right guy. And he called up this guy, Reverend Tunks, and he told Reverend Tunks that he was a drunk from New York and he needed to talk to another drunk so that he didn't have to get drunk. And Reverend Tunks was a very strong supporter of the Oxford group. I don't think Reverend Tunks was in the Oxford group himself, but a lot of his congregation was in the Oxford group, and he knew a lot about them, and he supported the Oxford group, and he had attended some of their house parties or gatherings or whatever they had. So he knew what Bill was doing, that he wanted to help somebody else that was going through what he's going through, and that would help him get better. So the Reverend Tunks gave him like 10 phone numbers. He called all of these numbers, and nobody knew a drunk. One person gave him the number of Henrietta Seiberling. And Bill was a little bit afraid to call her because Bill knew the Seiberling name. Frank Seiberling is the guy who started the Goodyear company. So he figured, oh, this guy's like a billionaire. If I call up somebody in his family, they're not going to want to talk to me because I'm just a regular, common person. But Bill was desperate and he called up and he got Henrietta on the phone. He told Henrietta that he was drunk from New York. He called himself a rum hound. And I have a way of fixing drunks so they don't have to drink anymore. Now, for a certain amount of time, for a few months, Henrietta had been praying for a friend of hers to be able to stop drinking. And she thought this was God sending somebody to help her, because right out of the clear blue, Bill called up Henrietta. He never knew Henrietta. Henrietta never knew Bill. Called up and said, I'm a drunk from New York, and I can help drunks not drink anymore. So she thought this was the answer to her prayers. And a lot of people think this is divine intervention, how all of these pieces of this puzzle came together. So Henrietta wound up getting him in touch with Dr. Bob. They met at Henrietta's house the next day, and Bill talked to Bob, and Bob said, I'm only going to talk to this guy for 15 minutes. And they wound up talking for like around 6 hours. Why? Because Bill talked drunk to another drunk. Bill didn't tell Dr. Bob what to do about his drinking. Bill told Dr. Bob what Bill went through. And Dr. Bob could identify with him. That's the gift that we have. We can get other alcoholics to identify with us. Imagine if some of this stuff never happened. Imagine if that deal in Akron didn't fall through. Bill would have never been pacing the lobby of the hotel. He would have been some kind of president or executive of that new company, and who knows what would have happened. He never would have met Dr. Bob, and maybe AA would have never got started. Suppose when he called up Henrietta Seiberling, suppose she hung up on him, or maybe she didn't answer the phone. They didn't have voicemail back then. They didn't have cell phones. If you weren't in earshot of your telephone back in those days, you didn't know anybody called you. Or when he called up Reverend Tunks, what if Reverend Tunks said, call me back up when you're sober, you drunk? Who knows? Could you imagine somebody calling you up on the phone and say, hey, I'm a drunk from New York. Can I talk to you for a while? Because we're in AA, we probably would talk to them. But if you weren't in AA and somebody called you up and said that, you'd probably hang up on them. Thank God all of these things happened the way that they happened. I mean, because any one little thing, by inches and by seconds, AA made it. Any one of these things that took place, if one of those little pieces of the puzzle weren't there, AA would have never got started. And who knows where we'd be right now if AA never got started. We'd all either be in jail or the nut house or in the grave somewhere. So thank God all of this stuff took place. And there's real good history in here. I love this chapter. It's got a lot of history. And I'm a guy that just happens to like the history of AA. Because to me, the history proves that it really happened. All this stuff is real people that this stuff happened to. These aren't just stories that somebody made up to try to make me get sober. So this is good stuff. And that's pretty much all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Bill. And Bill has his own meeting on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That information will also be put in the chat.
Okay, let's go ahead and close out with the Serenity Prayer, Rob.
Okay, Leo. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.